Hey, what is happening, you miserable manky? So, Pokemon has released a bunch of information about the 2025 season for the Pokemon TCG, VGC, Unite, Pokemon Go, all of it today. I'm going to be breaking it all down and giving you my takes, my opinions on all the changes as well. The first thing that they mentioned in this article here is that they did expand upon the auto invites 2024 season. If you won a regional championship, a European special event, or made the finals of any of the international championships, you would get your invite to the World Championships. They've increased that to regional winners, special event champions in general, not just European special event champions, and then also top 4 of international championships. This is definitely something I want to see them expand on going into the new season, and I wish they would have done more, and I hope that in future seasons they do expand upon this further, but it is still an improvement over the 2024 season, so you know, baby steps in the right direction. Would like to see a little bit more going to the 2026 season. The big shakeup, the big change that everyone's talking about is, of course, how you actually get your invite for the 2025 season. For the 2024 season in US and Canada, for the Masters division, you needed 600 championship points. They are changing the system to a top X system, where the top X amount of players in championship points will receive their invite, and for this season it is top 125 in the Masters division in US and Canada, as well as Europe, 100 in Latin America, Oceania is only 20, and then the Middle East, South Africa is 10, and then there's the juniors and seniors divisions as well. And this is the big change. It's going to be a lot less competitors at the World Championships from each of these divisions. I believe the Masters division this season had 271 players reach 600 championship points. Now it's guaranteed to only be 125 Masters or about. Anyone who gets an auto invite will not count towards this 125 number. So theoretically, if there's 15 US and Canada regionals, I guess also the international championships could count for this as well. And some of those players earn their invite by winning a regional championship. If they're also in the top 125 players, they will not take up one of the top 125 spots. So it's the top 125 Masters from US and Canada, as well as anyone who got an auto invite from regionals or international championships. So we could be looking at like 135, 140 US and Canada Masters going to the World Championship. So not a huge increase. So it'll be roughly around this 125 number. And this is going to be the main way to earn your World's invite, will be one of these top 125 players. So definitely a big switch up. I'm not a huge fan of this. I like the idea of there being like a set goal to go out for. This will make it harder to get your World's invite for sure, and I'm not against the World's invite being specifically harder to get, but you're definitely walking into the unknown if you're attempting to get your World's invite this year. You know, in 2024 season, you have to get 600 championship points. In the 2025 season, you have to get top 125. And what does that mean? What does that entail? We don't really know for sure. We don't know what that's going to look like. And we'll talk about the rest of the changes that happened and how it kind of leads to a little bit more of the unknown as well. But it's definitely going to be more difficult. That is true at the very least. And I feel like a lot of players are already kind of giving up on this season of attempting to get their World's invite. I don't think you need to really necessarily view it that way. The system is definitely leaning towards more players who are able to travel to more events. It's going to be a little bit bigger of a deal. It's going to be harder, so traveling to more events is going to be a bigger deal. But if you're someone who can afford to go to 6 to 8 major events, I think you should definitely still try and attempt to get your World's invite if that's a goal you have in the Pokemon TCG. But if not, turning those couple major tournaments that you can go to being your World Championship, whatever it might be, NAIC, or the couple regionals you can attend, making those your big events, prepping and trying extra hard at those to attempt to potentially even win those, because if you do win a regional championship, or if you do get top 4 at an international championship, you do get your World's invite. And they also did very heavily increase the amount of championship points that you can get from going really deep into these major tournaments. And we'll talk about that in a second, but getting like top 16 at a regional or an IC gives a lot more championship points than it used to. So if you're someone who could go to like 5 or 6 regionals last season, if you can still make it to 5 or 6 regionals this season, you might have to do a little bit better at them, but make that your goal for this season, is trying to improve your overall regional finishes. And if you do go really deep at one of those regionals, you could definitely walk away with your World's invite at the end of the season. So I don't like that it's top X. I don't really dislike that they increased the difficulty to get your World's invite, but I would prefer them to see them go up to like needing 700 championship points or 800 championship points. That way, people going into the season have a goal and something to kind of strive for, and they have like the target that they need to hit. We're definitely going a lot into the unknown, and I think that's discouraging a lot of people from wanting to even attempt to get their Worlds invite this season. I think that mentality will change a couple years from now, once we have a little bit better of an idea of what you need to kind of get to acquire your Worlds invite. Once we've had a couple seasons of this, it'll be a little bit easier to tell what you need to get your Worlds invite headed into the season, and people can gear up and prep to be able to achieve that throughout the season, because we're definitely going into a little bit unknown. It's a little bit daunting, I think, for a lot of the players who are not players who expect to get their Worlds invite season to season. For someone like me, this doesn't mean very much, because I'm planning to try and end up at ideally the #1 ranked player in US and Canada. I definitely think I'll be pretty confident that I'll be able to end up in the top 125 players throughout the season. And I'm not really worried about whatever kind of qualification they put on to get the World Championships. And I don't really know what is necessary to just get your Worlds invite. I haven't had to do that for a really long time now. I'm usually on the top end of the overall leaderboards in like the top 16 or whatever at the end of the season. So I've never tried to just, get the bare minimum. So I don't really know what it takes to get there. It'll definitely be achievable. And I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. And I think if that is one of your goals, like I said, if you can still go to those 5-6 regionals throughout the year, that's what you did last year. If you're able to still do that again this year, I think you can definitely play for still trying to get your Worlds invite this year. You're going to have to do better at some of these regionals, but I think that should be a goal if you're trying to take this as a competitive hobby. It should be to improve and get better at the game. So if you have to improve on your finishes from last year to this year, I don't really see that as like a bad thing if that's what you need to get your Worlds invite now. Because if you are competitive, you're trying to be competitive in the game, trying to compete at the World Championships, improving should be something that players have to do and something you should want to do if that does kind of fit the kind of player you are. Overall, this doesn't affect that many players in the Pokemon TCG. The vast majority of Pokemon TCG players are casual, like probably 80% plus won't get their Worlds invite, don't plan to try and get their Worlds invite. They just love going to tournaments. So a lot of people are making this out to seem like it was going to drastically hurt the attendance of major tournaments as well. I just don't think that's going to happen. I just think we're going to have less players who are going to go to that many more regional championships because they're just going to not quite play for their Worlds invite overall throughout the season. It's not going to be one of their goals with the daunting task, the unknown of this top 125. But besides that, I think most of these regionals are still going to be pushing for like 2,000 plus players. Theoretically, the caps are going to be hitting the caps on attendance as well. Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt the growth of the game. I don't think this actually hurts the growth of the game overall. I don't think it's going to change that much in terms of that. A lot of doom and gloom on the Twitter space right now, but I don't think it's quite going to affect it in the way that people think it's going to. They did change League Cups and League Challenges. It's now a best finisher limit of 4 for the whole season, and also for the quarters. If you're a player who ends up in a situation to play for one of those travel awards or stipends for one of the international championships, you can get between each international championships for that quarter or that section or that period, whatever you want to call it. You can get 4 challenges and 4 cup finishes, or best of 4 of those to go towards the travel awards or the stipend. But then overall for your invite on the season to be in that top 125, your best 4 cup and challenge finishes will count towards that as well. For the championship points, I guess we can actually first talk about this. And best finish limit did change for the regional championships. I also mentioned championship points did not change for challenges or cups. To my knowledge, I mean, it's been 15-50. Maybe one of the numbers down here changed a little bit. I actually have no clue. For regionals and internationals, championship points changed a lot. Also, the best finish limit changed. It changed to 6 combined between regionals, special events, and international events. So it's combining all of them together. So your 6 best placements in terms of championship points is what will be counted towards your invite, which makes it a little bit easier if you're someone who can't quite go to like everything or multiple ICs to compete against the players that can go to everything and multiple ICs and stuff like that, because it is going to be at that 6. So if you get 6 good regional finishes, even if someone has 6 good regional finishes and 3 good IC finishes, they'll only be able to use 3 of the regional finishes and 3 of the IC finishes towards their Worlds invite, and you'll be able to apply all 6 of your regional finishes towards your Worlds invite. A lot of people are saying that, well, it's basically the international championships, they give so much more championship points. Anyone who can travel to all 3 of the international championship points and get points will be the people who get their Worlds invites. But I don't think that's that high of a number of players. And I think the amount of players who go to all 3 internationals and then also get points, they'll be towards the top half of the invites. Like, let's say that's like 60 of the 125 players. That means there's still, 65 other invites up for grabs. And if some of those players win events or top 4 ICs, then they'll be walking away with an invite and opening up another slot for more players. So once again, even if you can only go to some regionals, maybe one international, like if you live in the US, you can only go to NAIC and some regionals in America/Canada, you could still definitely walk away with one of those lower down the leaderboard invites, being like the 20th or the 120th slot or the 110th slot, something like that. There's definitely room for players who can't quite go to all 3 internationals to fill up those slots on the bottom. There's going to be plenty of space for that, I think, overall. Talking about the championship points themselves, they increased them a lot. Now, if you win a regional, you get 350. If you win an international championship, you get 750. And then the really big boost to the points besides those top places is down here in like the top 16, top 32 area. For second place, it's 325 and 700. Top 4 is 300 and 650. Top 8 is 280 and 600. Top 16 is 160 at a regional and 400. Top 32 is 125 and 350. That's a lot of points. Top 32 at a international giving 250 points is a lot. So that does kind of lean towards the players who are able to travel to, potentially all 3 ICs throughout the season, but then they also have to get top 32 at all 3 of them. And if that does lead them to getting their invite, they're going to be on the top half of the invites. There's still going to be players on the lower half of that invite area in the bottom, like 40, 50 players out of the top 125 who are not going to have those points, who you can be competing against theoretically if you can't make it to all 3 ICs. Top 64, 100, 250 there. And then here it gets back to kind of like what it was last season, the 20 points for top 10, 24, 40 points at ICs. But the top half of this, like down to the top 64, the points were boosted up a lot. It's a lot more points being given out at these regional championships and these international championships for deep placements. And I like that, rewarding the players who actually have the more impressive, deeper runs in these tournaments, not just making day 2, but then actually progressing and doing something more with their day 2 than just, ending up top 256 or something like that. So I like the more points in the higher placements at these major tournaments for sure. Moving on, they didn't change prizes a ton. The cash pricing is still the exact same. They did change pack pricing a little bit. Now, if you get top 128 at a regional championship or at a major tournament, if there is 1,025 players or more, or 1,025 to 2,048 players, you'll get a booster box for getting top 128, which is pretty cool. And then half a booster box if we reach these numbers as well for getting top 256. And then even booster boxes will go paying down all the way to top 512 if there is more than 2,048 or 49 players. I'm sure EUIC and NAIC will break that number, and it's possible a couple of the regionals in the US will also break that number as well. Maybe a European regional will break that number. I doubt it, but mostly like the US, European, actually probably all the regionals in Latin America, Europe, and America will be higher than 1,025. So that booster box for top 128 will probably be at most regionals, and then the 18 packs as well for top 256. So a little bit more pricing in terms of the product for major tournaments. Like I said, the cash pricing is the same as last season's. Regional winners 10K, IC winners 25K, and then the World Championships is staying the same as well, 50K for first place. This is all that VG and Pokemon Go stuff. International Championships Travel Awards, they did change things a little bit here. There's still the Travel Award overall for TCG. I guess they did actually... No, they did change it a little bit, I think. This is actually the exact same. Yeah, Travel Award for top 4 in region 2K, and then out of region is the 3.5. The 5th to 8th and 9th to 16th is just a stipend, but they did add priority registration for 17th to 32nd place in the qualification period for the international championship. So this is something I've wanted to see for a little while. A lot of people call it whatever, top player privilege or whatever. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of the best players being guaranteed spots at these major tournaments and playing in these major tournaments. So this is another thing I want to see them expand upon further outside of just the travel award and stipends heading into the season. And they did it just a little bit, but hopefully they continue to expand upon it. Just like the guaranteed invites is another thing I'd like to see expanded upon. It's another thing I'd like to see expanded upon in the future. Next season, 2026, hopefully it's something they keep building on year after year. Big change up is the Swiss rounds, actually. And this format is following what Swiss format is supposed to be in terms of like for chess and stuff like that, apparently. I didn't know that was like a thing. I didn't know there was like a true Swiss format that existed, and then we were playing like a modified version of it. up until this year, apparently. Now we're playing exactly in the Swiss format that they use for like chess and stuff like that. So there's less rounds. This is also what we're going to be playing with at Worlds. This is going to be the format that we're using at the World Championships this season, 2024. And then moving forward into 2025, we're going to be continuing this format. So the big change here is there's just going to be less rounds overall. So day one, most major tournaments will probably have 8 rounds because you need 2,049 players to get to that 9-round number. Now, almost every single major tournament that I went to this season, 2024, had 9 rounds day one. And then only one tournament, I think it was Stockholm, had 5 rounds day 2, and most had 6 rounds in day 2. So that's a pretty big shakeup. To be honest, it's a pretty big change. It will allow tournaments to probably run a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, and it will definitely hurt the need or want for a tie in day 1 specifically, because the point threshold to make day 2 now is going to be 18 points. So that's effectively 6-2 from 8 rounds. You're going to play 8 rounds, 6 wins get you those 18 points, which gets you to day 2. 503 would also get you there as well, of course. So that would also be like a possible route into day 2. And we don't get to 9 rounds unless we have that 2,049 players, which EUIC and NAIC will probably break that threshold. And maybe a couple US regionals will as well. Ideally, all of them. That'd be pretty sick for most US regionals to have more than 2,000 players. It'll depend a little bit on venue size for sure. But I feel like with this chart, the way it is, I feel like, or I would hope that Pokemon is going to hope to try and break the 2,049 number here at most US regionals, and then ideally most European regionals as well. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what kind of caps they set on registration and stuff like that when the first couple regionals open up for people to register for. We'll see where the numbers land. But yeah, some regionals will definitely have only that 8 rounds day 1, and then in day 2 the round number is lower as well. If you don't break the 2,000 player number, or actually from the 1,000 to 2,000 and then over the 2,000, it is 4 rounds. For us to get to 5 rounds in day 2, you have to have over 4,097 players. That's a lot of players. Now, I do like that they gave us this number. This is something I was talking about a lot last season. It was like, well, the game is growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. When is the next breaking point? At what point are they like, will you get another round in day 1 or another round in day 2? Or instead of top 8, we go to top 16 or 32 or whatever it might be. And they gave it to us. So I'm glad that we have that information to work with. When we get tournaments greater than 4,097 players, we'll have 5 rounds in day 2 after 9 rounds in day 1. So less rounds overall, which not a huge fan of personally. I mean, it kind of sucks. Like, more rounds, the better. You're going to get the better players kind of rising to the top, the players who are playing better on the day or whose deck was innovated better with on the day rising to the top with the more rounds in a tournament. So I'm not a huge fan of this. My hope would be that this does lead to potentially more time for each round, for each match, which would lead to less ties, something like 60 minutes plus 3, or remove the plus 3 and give us 60 minutes. I don't know, something like that would be nice to see, a change up in that to kind of reduce ties overall. If we are going to be playing less matches, let us play more games of Pokemon in those matches by giving us more time to work with. Don't get it twisted. I still vastly prefer current 50-minute plus 3 best 2 out of 3 over best of 1, but it doesn't mean it can't be improved upon. And if they could give us more time, if we are going to have less rounds overall, I don't think it's going to go that way though. I think we're still going to have 50 minutes plus 3. But you know, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, I guess. So yeah, less rounds overall day 1 and day 2 for most tournaments. The ones that we get over that 2,049, we will get to that 9th round. There won't be a ton of those, I don't feel like. I don't know, maybe half the regionals in the US will get there, but always going to be locked into less rounds day 2. But they are giving us asymmetrical top cut. For anyone who doesn't understand what asymmetrical top cut is, it basically means if you have the same record as the 8th seed, so it's an asymmetrical top 8. You could also theoretically have asymmetrical top 16. So it's asymmetrical top 8. If you have the same amount of match points as the 8th seed, you play into the top 8. So let's see, 8th seed has 30 match points, and then seeds 9, 10, and 11 also have 30 match points. They will all play in like a play-in round, kind of, where the 8th seed will play the 9th seed, and then the 7th seed will play the 10th seed, and then the 11th seed will play the 6th seed. And then they all play against each other, and then the 3 winners of those matches are now in the top 8, and then the rest of the top 8 progresses as normal. So being a higher seed actually has an advantage now, theoretically, because if you're seed 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in that specific breakdown, you don't play that extra play-in round, you're guaranteed into top 8. So I do like that about asymmetrical cut, because it did feel like in the current format of the game, there was no real relevance to having first seed. So once you were locked for top cut, if like you needed to get like 34 match points to make top cut at a specific major tournament, and you had 35 match points, but there's still 2 rounds left, which was possible, then you could kind of do whatever you wanted. You could play it out against your opponent, or you could concede to your opponent, or you could ID. But now there's incentive to be a higher seed in the tournament, which I really, really like. And I think not only is there an incentive to, but being rewarded for being the higher seed going into Top Cut is something that should exist. You should want to give players a reason to win every match of Pokemon they possibly can throughout the whole tournament, and this does incentivize that. So I really, really like Asymmetrical Cut for that reason. There's other ways you could have done it as well. You could have had it where the higher seed gets to pick first or second going into the first game in the Top Cut match. That would have been another way. They do that in Magic, into Magic Top Cuts. In that game, and I always thought that was an interesting inclusion. But Asymmetrical Cut does incentivize that a little bit. We will still have tournaments where there's kind of clean cut, and it clean cuts a top 8. And if there is any asymmetrical, it'll probably only be like 2 to 3 players. It's probably never going to reach super far into the top 8 players. But yeah, being a higher seed does now have an advantage overall, which I do like. It is cool to see that. Moving along, they did also announce some of the first couple major tournaments happening. The first major tournament overall is going to be Baltimore in the US. That's going to be the first major tournament of the season on September 13th to 15th. Now, this isn't all the major tournaments. This is only up until, it looks like the end of the year. I mean, I guess they could fit one more, a week or 2 after Toronto here, but my assumption is that they gave us all the tournaments up to the end of the year, and then hopefully in a month or so, maybe 2 months, we get the announcement for the rest of the major tournaments. Some big standouts about like the special events happening in the Latin American region is, and these were pointed out to me by Pablo Tablemon, is that they're being run in convention centers. So they're not just being run at card shops or something like that. And they are being, what else did I want to say here? They are being run in convention centers, so they have the capability of being a lot bigger than they were before. Also, like I mentioned, special events in general give you your World's Invite for winning now. Last season, 2024, it was just European special events. So I think they are trying to push the game in Latin America, which is really, really nice. They're giving them more opportunities there to play the game, earn invites, and they are also spreading these special events in the Latin American region out and announcing them earlier in the year. Like usually a lot of the special events that happen in Latin America are announced like super late into the season, and they're all kind of like just thrown in May. But now they're being scheduled ahead of time. They're being spread out. They're being given like convention centers and a lot more space for, a lot bigger tournaments potentially. So it's really cool to see. The game is growing a lot in Latin America in general, and now they're being given the tournaments, so the players have actually something to play for, which is great to see overall. Love to see that. I don't think there was no tournament was announced for Australia. We got some US tournaments, or US and Canada. We got some European tournaments in Latin America, but nothing in Australia quite yet. So Australia might not be playing until the new season. Their stuff always gets announced super late. I don't know. It's kind of wacky for them. I always feel a little bad for for the Australian players. And then also the international championships were all announced, the dates, the locations. Boom, it's here off the rip. Love to see that. Would have loved to see the full tournament schedule as well, but they gave us a lot to work with. It would have been nice to see it all. I know everyone who works like normal 9 to 5s, it's like a lot nicer to know as soon as possible when those things happen. And it would be nice for Pokemon to put out that information as soon as possible so people can, plan accordingly throughout their year. I don't have that experience myself. I've never really worked that kind of 9 to 5 where I have to get time off or something like that. So I can't relate to that experience, but I've talked with people about it before. It's definitely real. Definitely would be nice to see TPCI step up that heading into each new season and release the full schedule as soon as they possibly can. Because it must suck on that end. But yeah, the ICs all announced. We're going back to Sao Paulo in Brazil, London as well for the European International Championship. And then we already knew we were going back to New Orleans. They announced that at the end of NAIC this season, so we know we're going back there. Yeah, New Orleans once again, which I'm personally excited about. There's a lot more food places I personally want to try in New Orleans, so I'm excited to go back to New Orleans. London is kind of whatever, and Sao Paulo is kind of whatever for me as well. I've been there a ton to both those locations, but they're still decent. They're good locations overall. Just good locations overall for sure for those regions. All right, I think that's it. I've rambled on long enough. I've yapped long enough. What did I miss? You think there's anything else I should have discussed, pointed out? What are your takes on all of this information? Let me know in the comment section down below. I will link this article in the description as well, so you can go ahead and read over everything yourself if you want. I think I covered all the main points. I don't think I missed anything. I looked over this twice before I started recording and putting my thoughts out there in this video, but if I missed anything big, comment section as always, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.